What's up, everyone? Welcome into Attacking Third post U.S. Women's National Team match. We are going live following every single U.S. SheBelieves Cup match. The U.S., they get it done. A 2-1 win over Australia in match day 2 of SheBelieves Cup. And here to recap it all, my trusty friends, Darian Jenkins, Christine Cupo, I'm Lisa Carlin. Special love to Sandra Herrera. She'll be with us back on the show tomorrow. We got a win. A dub by the hair of their chinny chin chins, it felt like at times, Darian. But initial thoughts of U.S. in match day 2 against Australia.
I saw the lineup. I said, damn, Lisa was right again. Claire Hutton got the start. It was a really, really interesting lineup. A lot of young, some veterans. I think it makes sense knowing it's just going to be unpredictable with Hayes. But it was an interesting first half for me for the U.S. The first half and second half there's quite a difference between the two.
Yeah, cosign on that. First and second half were like night and day, or maybe like early evening, late evening. I don't know. I think this match proved that Emma Hayes' appetite for being uncomfortable surpasses that of this starting 11. And moreover, definitely mine. I think I would have hit the emergency brake by the half. Those late subs. I know we'll get further into it, but
I mean, I love your analysis, Christine, but you're hitting us with the moreover. You're like right click, thesaurus, different words.
yeah, I have a master's in English that I don't get to use, so here I am.
Guys, if you're with us on YouTube, thanks for hanging. Join the chat, like this video, subscribe, because we're going live all the time. We got a whole combo in the chat. Join us there. We're going to dive into US versus Australia coming up right after this. Everyone, welcome into Attacking Third. U.S. Women's National Team 2-1 win over Australia. Full recap following match day 2 of the SheBelieves Cup. We are going live on YouTube, live on Galazzo Network for all of these recaps. And don't forget, you can listen as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Alongside Darian Jenkins and Christine Cupo, I'm Lisa Carlin. We are chatting all of it. We saw some debuts, Darian. We saw a couple of goals, and we even saw the U.S. get one in on them. What'd you make of this 90 minutes we saw from the U.S.?
I mean, another layer for Emma Hayes. This you could tell that when the US came into this match, they put pace up top. Going against Australia, clearly the game plan was we're going to make them turn around and have to chase us. And it started literally from the beginning of the half when Lynn Biyendolo scores her first goal with her first last name against Australia. It was a really good start. I think for me, I was immediately impressed by Emma Sears. I just think she has gelled so well into this national team. And anytime the ball went up that left side to her, and she also has Dunn behind her, who I think allowed her to have that freedom to just sit up higher in the attack, she looked super dangerous. But I like this game for the US because it was probably one of the uglier games we've seen them play in the total 90 minutes, just to be frank. Australia posed a lot of challenges, especially in the midfield. I think we saw big question marks of chemistry, players adapting to Emma Hayes' style, how quickly she wants the game to move. And it's a big moment for growth. I wouldn't say it's a bad game, but it wasn't a pretty game by the typical standards we're used to talking to the US about.
Yes, what Darian said. And I think that my holistic takeaway is that Emma, we talked about this before we jumped on. Emma Hayes is way more comfortable with the discomfort of a try, of kind of playing chicken in a little way. Her appetite for trying and seeing it through is higher than that of that starting 11 that she put out for sure. They looked like they were playing a little bit too conservatively, a little bit scared, lots of back passes and recycling the ball, fewer bites into progression that we saw in the midfield that were just lacking until some of the substitution changes. I think that this is a good test of what there is in terms of depth for the US, but there's still, in my opinion, a big cliff from what is the starting 11 that I think probably would all agree on at this point versus some of the youth getting pushed into the system. I think it would be hard to pick out a standout player. There are people that stepped up today, but I don't think that it was a blow us out of the water performance for what I don't want to call a B squad, but for a young learning team.
I don't think it's unfair to call this a B squad. I don't think it is unfair. There are a lot of positions that Emma Hayes has talked about wanting to get depth in, and we saw that. Christine, you said it really well before we went live and we are talking about this, saying that Emma Hayes is so comfortable in the uncomfortable and putting people in positions and just kind of weathering the storm, trying it out, because there are so many moments during this match before we saw the first subs come in where I was like, are we going to change something? Are we going to give it a little bit more stability, a little more assurance? And she didn't. She held out, holding on to our subs until late in the second half, really allowing these players that are young and haven't started together and haven't played at all together to work out some of the kinks. And I think going up against this Australian side that hadn't had the best opening match day of the SheBelieves Cup, losing 4-0 to Japan, they came out looking a little feistier, while also Emma Hayes in the US knowing, okay, maybe we're not going up against the best team in the world right now. It's a bit of a deflated Australian side. Let's run through Australia and their starting 11 that they rolled out with, because 4 changes from Australia's first match in SheBelieves Cup against Japan. Reminder, it was a 4-0 loss to Japan. In the back, one of the changes, Tegan Micah in goal, and then across the back line, Grant, Catley, Kennedy, Carpenter, Cooney Cross, and Heatley in the midfield, Fowler sitting ahead of them, Ford, McNamara, and Rosso up top. So 4 changes. And Darian, Australia looked a little different when they came out against the US than they did versus Japan. They had a little more fight and fire to them, I would say.
Oh, well, I think Japan humbled them, to say the least. And looking at this lineup, I mean, Australia has a really stacked squad. Most of these players play on really big clubs in Europe. Most of them, the NWSL, is where you hear a lot of their names more frequently. And so I didn't think this was going to be an easy game for the US by any means. And the Matildas are also very, very physical in the middle of the park. And I think that was quite humbling for the US in this match. They came out knowing, hey, we're not going to be the most possessive base team. We're not going to have the most of the possession of the ball. So when the US is going to play out, let's be heavy hitters. And we saw that between Cooney Cross, Fowler, Heatley, Ford, Rosso. I think that was a really good mix and also challenge for the US trying to play out of the back. And it worked in their favor. It took until the second half for this Australia lineup to really find their footing and be effective once they regained the ball and look a little bit more dangerous. But they got a goal. But I like this lineup. And special shout out to my girl, Tegan Micah, because although she got scored on twice, she had some really, really good saves that kept Australia in the match.
Yeah, it changed from Mackenzie Arnold, who had started for Australia against Japan. Tegan Micah getting a good run out there for Australia. Yeah. So 4 changes for the Matildas. Emma Hayes says, I will double you plus a little extra. 11 changes for Emma Hayes in the U.S. women's national team from match day 1 to match day 2. 11, guys. Every single player
team
was different. The whole team. It starts in the back. Mandy McGlynn in goal. Across the back line, Crystal Dunn, Tierna Davidson, Emily Sams, and Giselle Thompson. In the midfield, Corbin Albert, Claire Hutton, and Jaedyn Shaw. And up top, Emma Sears, Lynn Biyendolo, and Alyssa Thompson. So the Thompson sisters on one side. It was Claire Hutton earning her first cap and her first start at just 19 years old. Giselle Thompson and Claire Hutton getting their first start. Crystal Dunn, her first time starting a U.S. women's national team match since the Olympics. She was in that left back position. And for the United States, with these 11 changes, it was the youngest starting 11 since 2001 that this squad has rolled out with Christine. All these changes, which one stood out to you the most?
You know what? Most of them did, quite frankly. I wasn't expecting her to shift this up so much. I obviously did want to see Emily Sams. I didn't know that we'd get Emily Sams, Giselle Thompson in the back line. I understand the thought of anchoring possibly each line with a vet or someone that's really experienced when you, again, as you mentioned, Lisa, roll the dice and like Dunn hasn't really played any quality minutes. And now she's sort of entrusted to lock it down next to Tierna, which gives you this kind of very lopsided back line in a lot of ways. Hutton with Corbin coming in, I think I would have expected to see Coffee in there because Coffee, as far as I'm concerned, is integral to the success of the squad. She can receive the ball, spin and go. She's not afraid to progress on the carry. I think the midfield needed that, even though I think Hutton did as well as you'd assume for someone making their debut. That's not a knock on her. I think that it's a lot to play with players you haven't played a legitimate match with and being that green.
And it's her first camp too. There's a lot of newness for Claire Hutton, especially today.
Yeah, a ton. When we first saw this lineup, my immediate thought was, who's going to open up and drive with the ball? Because that's something that would differentiate these two players because I think they play somewhat similarly. Jesus.
Who? Which two players are you talking about?
Albert and Hutton. They're both really defensive. They're both heavy hitters in the back. They're going to clean stuff up. They're not going to play the most daring passes forward, at least with the U.S. Hutton, we don't know what she was training to play. Clearly, it's the 6 now. I mean, they need to have some more depth in that 6 position. But I think that was the struggle. I know we're going to get into the first half, but it was almost like they were doing the exact same thing, and there wasn't any questions that they were making Australia have to solve because neither of them were really opening up, and driving at an Australian midfielder to then have to make decisions that would open up pockets to get into the front line. I think that's why we saw so many long balls from Sams and Davidson, but it was just too monotonous from the two of them, in my opinion.
One of the first notes I wrote about a minute or 2 minutes into this game was Hutton sitting in the 6 because we didn't know. We weren't really sure where she was going to play, and I could have seen Albert drop a little deeper. We'll get into it, all the positioning, where we saw these players line out and roll out. I was excited to see the two Thompson sisters start together, especially on the right side playing together. Of course, there's a lot of history, and it's pretty remarkable to have two sisters starting together that are 19 and 20 years old. But very special to see them and to watch them. And I think it was good for Giselle Thompson to get a couple more minutes. She came in the first match of the SheBelieves against Colombia and got a couple minutes, but to get a start, to get significant time on the pitch is exactly what Emma Hayes wants from these young players and this group. I'm really glad that Claire Hutton got time too. That was the player I wanted to see get minutes.
You called it. You're 2 for 2.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm not even fishing today for these compliments. Let's
Wait,
go.
didn't Sandra perfectly lay out this
Yes.
lineup on
She did.
CBS
We do have to give
Sports.com?
love to Sandra because she, in her
Yes.
article, go read it at CBSSports.com, she listed all of these changes. She knew.
I need
So
her to hit me
cute.
with the winning lottery numbers because it's easier to pick that than Emma Hayes' next predicted lineup.
It's insane. It's impressive that Sandra did it. Guys, we haven't even talked about the game. What happened? 3 goals. The U.S. end up winning. Don't go anywhere. We're diving into the first half of USA versus Australia next. In the 36th all-time meeting between the USA and Australia, the Americans get the 2-1 win over the Matildas. How many of you actually missed the opening goal because you just hadn't even settled in yet? Because 41 seconds into this match, Lynn Biyendolo earns her first goal with her new last name. It is a beaut, and the U.S. go up 1-0. D, you're here for us. You got to break it down. Tell us how the goal happened.
Oh, I'm honored. Sears, if I'm recalling correctly, because it was so freaking fast, I seriously had just sat down with my water, with my laptop, plugging it in, and I looked up. Sears is going 1v1. I think she's going to cut it back herself. Williams is in between the center. Biyendolo is in between the center backs, makes a run, waiting for that ball to cut across. Sears cuts it back, pushes it up to Shaw, who then squares it across the 6, and Biyendolo puts it away for her first goal with her new last name. And I mean, if I'm Australia and the first minute of the game, after coming off of getting smacked by Japan, I'm scored on by the U.S., by Biyendolo, that is so, so tough to overcome. And I think we saw the U.S. really benefit from Australia just lacking the confidence after that. But it was a really good statement start. Again, I think people are coming at me in the comments for saying Sears had a good game. I really think she did. Ellie Carpenter is one of the best outside backs in the world, in my opinion. I would say top 5. And for her to face her up, go at her for how long she was in the game and not giving up on going 1v1 and battling against her, getting a lot of corners, it was a good setup for how that battle was going to be. And I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I'm honestly shocked anybody would say Emma Sears didn't have a good game. Like, those boots were sticky. She was carving into space. She was on the end of balls. She was sending them over too. Like, she was doing a significant amount of work on that left side with Crystal Dunn even feeding her. I thought she was doing exactly what you expect based on what she does for club for this national team. And she's smart about it. Like, her body movements on and off the ball. And she doesn't back down. I love the fight in Emma Sears.
I would argue that this wasn't Sears' best game by any means. She's not comfortable
She's going
on the
up against
left side,
Carpenter.
going up against Carpenter, not also playing with players around her that weren't her best. I mean, Sears had a fine game. I don't think it was anything special or to write home about.
But to be fair, I don't think anyone had a special game on the US today. I mean, there's not a player that I'm like, oh, they were. Yeah, that I'm thinking, oh, we're standout. I think Sears was effective. Was anybody super clean on the ball today or looking like they were totally informed? No. It's also preseason for a lot of these players.
True.
But for Sears to go in and say, despite all of that, I'm still going to go 1v1 against Ellie freaking Carpenter, the starter for Lyon, Champions League winner, Matilda, like decorated player. As young as Sears is, it was impressive to me.
I think Claire Hutton was more impressive in this performance than Emma Sears. I was impressed with Claire Hutton in the midfield, considering this is her first camp. She is young. It was her first start. She's also playing alongside two other players in the midfield that don't typically play there. I mean, Corbin Albert has time there, but also Jaedyn Shaw, who was trying to prove herself. It was a little bit like every man for themselves in trying to prove themselves, where if you have someone that is, I'm going to use light quotes, on the A team, a Sam Coffey in the midfield, a Lindsay Heaps, it gives that much more support to Claire Hutton. She didn't have that. And she was sitting directly in front of the center backs, much lower in the six than she played at Kansas City than she's used to. And it was clearly a different role being asked of her. But there were times when she found calmness on the ball in the chaos centrally in the midfield, when if she didn't have that calmness, I don't think we would fault her for it. But she did. I think she outplayed Sears. If we're just talking like first half performance, looking at the 11 that started.
I will cop to having an attacker bias. I will wave that flag high, like put them all out front. I just think that with the way that things didn't progress in the midfield, I think I discount her a little bit. Again, it's not Hutton's fault. It's just that I felt like Corbin basically was doing cleanup work, and then so was kind of Hutton. There wasn't really anything, and I felt like that was why things were dying a little bit in the midfield for a while.
It wasn't the most balanced midfield by any means. What do you think, Dee? We can't hear you.
Unmute, mama.
Oh, no, sorry, I coughed. I didn't want to pull Sandra and cough on the mic, but I was not impressed with the midfield. I don't think it was a setup or maybe the personnel that would get the best out of Claire Hutton, Corbin Albert, or Jaedyn Shaw, frankly. Do I think anyone had a bad game? No, but I don't think anyone was stand out because you have two players, Albert and Hutton, who do play similarly. They like to check back. They like to swing the point of attack. They're not going to be the ones to ping those balls forward, but it clogged so much of the space. And because of that, Sams and Davidson were the players that were really distributing the ball the most. They were the ones playing those balls over the top, switching the point of the attack, taking those really, really big switches that let the U.S. reset, let Sears and Thompson a little bit go 1v1. I'll say another player I was impressed. Actually, let me just say this for the whole team, because it was such a change up of chemistry, of a different ask, because the forwards you have on your front line, they're not going to be the ones that typically want to check back into the pocket all the time. They want to go 1v1, isolated. Those are their strengths. It was a big change up. I think I'm most impressed by this U.S. squad out of how everybody reacted when the ball was lost. There was a lot of poor giveaways, especially in the middle of the pitch. Rarely did the second pass actually make it out. And if it did, it wasn't necessarily a pretty pass. But the reaction of everybody, especially the two Thompson sisters, to me, was very impressive. Because if you can overcome those mistakes that you're making, or a pass that's not directly to you, or a poor touch, and get the ball back and at least maintain possession, that's a win for me. Everything else is going to calm down with nerves. Those players are there because they're impeccable with their touches, how technical they are, their tactics. I can't imagine going into a match like that without having played with a lot of each other. But I think the reaction is what's really encouraging with this Hayes squad that she lined up today.
Hayes definitely gives them confidence to play, right? And I think that is shown because of the lack of changes that she makes, right? The lack of instruction that we really see coming from her. She has full confidence in her players, which when you're a player and you know that your coach fully believes in you and trusts you to do your job, no matter how chaotic or uncomfy you might feel on the pitch, you at least have that in your back pocket. Like, okay, I know she's not going to pull me in the 30th minute despite not getting on the ball or not finding any spaces, but it was clunky. This first half was a bit clunky. I want to talk about Jaedyn Shaw in this midfield though, because we got to see her for a couple minutes at the end of the Colombia match, and then she starts in the attacking midfield number 10 role where she wants to play. How do we rate her performance, specifically in this first half when it was with a lot of new people around her and there's a lot of growing pains in the first 45 minutes? How do you rate how Shaw performed in the 10?
I think she came in really strong, right? That from that jump, 45 seconds in, helping with that Lynn Biyendolo goal. And then again, that first one she came in from the left. The second one, I believe she came in from the right, and that ended up being the goal that ended up getting called offside by Lynn. She was doing a lot of work up front. I feel like it petered for me as the game drew on. But I think that also could have been oh my God, hello, English is my first language. A symptom of some of that disjointedness around her as well. But I think giving her the freedom, the movement that she had was great, even trying to get on the ball and getting shots off.
It was interesting with Shaw because she drifted wide a lot of the time as opposed to sitting in a pocket, but I don't think it actually worked because Sears isn't the player I expect to pop inside the channel and kind of fluctuate with the 10 position a little bit more. And it was interesting listening to the broadcasters. They said, Hayes mentioned at halftime, we need Shaw in the middle of the park more. We need her getting on the ball and turning and dribbling. In the second half, she was much more impressive to me. Maybe she looked more impressive in the first half because she was part of the goal. She had a couple opportunities, but I still think in the second half, we finally saw her get into those channels, turn, dribble, attempt to play balls forward. It didn't always work out, but that's the other wrinkle that was needed in the midfield to give something different than what everybody else was doing. It was a little too crowded for everybody to be running away from the ball in the front
Why
line.
do you think Shaw floated so wide? Because it was crowded in the midfield?
Maybe so. Trying to find those channels
trying to
to
find
get like a
space.
dink ball over the top. Yeah, I mean, you that's what looked to be open, but it was again just the adjustment of if Hutton and Albert are just offset a bit, it's going to ask something different for then Shaw to be in those pockets as opposed to Shaw pulling really wide to try to get into a position that ultimately didn't really benefit anybody else. That at least that's how I saw it.
You know
that's
what?
a good way
I
to
think
put it.
I agree with you there because I also think part of the symptom is it seemed like, and maybe this just goes to like the lack of chemistry and trust with each other, but the anticipation of having to cut off those transitional moments where they were getting dispossessed, because you also saw them jump on each other in those spaces where, yes, it's nice to help out your teammate where you'd see 2-on-1 trying to repossess the ball. I think that getting hemmed up in some of that is what was causing some of the congestion too, is the anticipation of, oh, I might have to dive in here. So instead of spreading a little bit and giving Shaw the room to move, it just became more clogged.
Jaedyn Shaw, I feel like, was given the role of like, you're our Band-Aid person at times. Like when I feel like every time someone got the ball, they were trying to go 1v1. I don't know. It was very individualized the first 45 minutes. And Shaw was always the person that was like, okay, I'm going to be here to support you. And then it was like, help, hospital ball given to Shaw, a little outlet pass. I'm just going to flick it to her, save me from being double teamed. It felt like that, Dee.
No, it did. It felt like, oh, one too many touches here. And you throw the ball at her. Yeah, again, it was just the disjointedness, but I understood the game plan because when you play with a Biyendolo up top, you have Sears, you have Thompson. Those are all such quick-paced players that if you're a back line, Lisa, I know you were a defender. If you're in that back line, you're thinking, oh my God, okay, I need to be 4 steps ahead.
Drop.
If it's Biyendolo, I better be 7 steps ahead. And she's still probably gonna make me kick the ball out of bounds just because she gets there so quickly. So I think with the US trying to stretch, they just need to try to maybe sit a little bit more.
Yeah,
and
that's a good point.
Figure out a way to get that, as opposed to everybody kind of taking off and trying to get those or get on the second pass, because Australia did good cleaning up at times. It wasn't pretty, was not pretty. I can admit that, but they did a good job shutting it down for the most part.
So with those 3 front runners that we're talking about, Emma Sears, Lynn Biyendolo, and Alyssa Thompson, they are quick. They are players that want to get in behind. Should they play together, or no? Should you have another forward on the front line that wants to drop a little bit deeper into the midfield?
I think with Sears and Thompson, you are looking for them to add that to their game.
Okay, so it's more of
I think
that's
what this match was. I think putting all these players in, it was so uncomfortable. You could see it. A lot of mistouches, missed passes, a lot of nerves. Some players grew into the game, some players didn't. It takes a minute. It takes a minute, but this is a huge opportunity that I think players, if you look at the US squad 5 years ago, would have never gotten a chance to start an 11 like this. Ever. So to get this under your belt and have 90 minutes or 60 minutes of film to go back and say, hey, you all ran away from the ball here. Sears, here's where you can pop into a channel. Shaw, here's where you can do this. I mean, it's a big growth game for me. And I mean, hey, they still won. So how mad can we be?
Exactly. They did still win. Guys, it was so uncomfy. Watching this game at times was so uncomfy. But I didn't ever think the US is going to lose. They're going to concede a bunch of goals. They're not going to. It felt fine, and that my confidence was fine in this group. I just was closing one eye to be like,
even when they conceded that goal, you were still like, you were good. We got 10 minutes to go. I'm not worried. I was a little worried.
I wasn't worried. I don't know. I
wasn't either. I think US has it in the bag. It was just Emma Hayes wanting it to be very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And letting them figure it out.
Can she consult us first before she makes us all uncomfortable again? Like, I need an emotional support animal for my emotional support animal if we're going to do this exercise again.
There is growth in the uncomfortability. We saw it today. The U.S. grew. They go into halftime up a goal 1-0 thanks to Lynn Biyendolo in the 41st second. Can I say that? 41st second. Less than a minute into the game, she gets her opening goal. A Biyendolazo. U.S. up 1-0 at the half. Guys, we're talking second half, how things changed, players that made it a little less uncomfy. Stick with us. Welcome back to Attacking Third. The USA get a 2-1 win over Australia. Early goal by Lynn Biyendolo, formerly Lynn Williams. And we saw 11 changes for Emma Hayes in this second game of the SheBelieves Cup. We got to see Mandy McGlynn make a start in goal. Jane Campbell the first game, Mandy McGlynn the second game, and McGlynn got tested. Dee, how do you rate McGlynn's performance in this game that she got a full 90 minutes?
It was, again, I think a position of growth. When are you at a high-stakes game with the U.S., getting tested against Australia? They have some tall players, great in the air, great players with service in between Catley and Kira Cooney-Cross. And I think we saw the nerves. She had one corner kick early in the match where she swung and missed. It was an early chance for Australia. The U.S. ended up clearing it. But then we saw U.S. need to use Mandy McGlynn with her feet. And it's something she's praised a lot on in the NWSL, but it's different when you have the pressure of wearing the crest and the players around you also haven't played together. I mean, Sams and Davidson, that's their first time really playing together. We saw her deal with that press. It was tough. She had some really shaky moments where the touch was a little bit too far. The pass was right next to an Australian player's foot. It was a bit precarious, and we saw the U.S. get punished. They conceded a goal. But I think she's going to look back at that tape, and it's nothing that she can't fix. Mm-hmm. It's simply opening up your body a little bit more, having your center backs drop at a different angle for you so you don't have to play such a narrow pass. But she did look shaky at times, but I think that she'll grow a lot from it. It's all fixable.
Defensively, when you have a new goalkeeper, a new back four, a new midfield defensive two, and there's a lot of newness, a lot of people not playing together, you want someone to take control of the game defensively. I'm talking like organizationally, communicatively. And I understand if it's not always going to be the goalkeeper because sometimes you're geographically farther away from them on the pitch, and then it has to be a center back. But when you have Davidson and Sams back there and Dunn, and it's a lot of newness happening. I wanted McGlynn, when the ball was in the defensive third, to just own it. Own everything defensively, whether it's right or wrong, just be convicted in what you're doing. And so many times I felt like the ball came in the box and she wanted to get it, but then she maybe hesitated or questioned herself, which comes with time, right? It also comes if you have two center backs that have started 25 games together in front of you. That helps, gives you a little bit more confidence. But sometimes where the ball is in the box, it has to be the keeper's command. It has to be, whether she's getting there or she's not. Own it. And I feel like the confidence of McGlynn grew throughout the game. And there was moments towards the end where she did look a lot better, a lot less nervy, right? You're starting a national team game with the number one goalkeeper spot on the line. Of course you're going to have nerves. There was a moment with her feet where she had a bit of a fumble and defensively the U.S. saved her. I think it was Sams who ended up backtracking just at the start of the second half. And that is so unlike McGlynn. And that's when I knew, okay, she's just nervous. There's going to be time and things are going to change. In the second half, Christine, we got to see ultimately some subs, some changes happen in the 62nd minute. 4 changes that came from Emma Hayes. Tara McKeown coming in, Yasmin Ryan, Ali Sentnor, and Michelle Cooper taking off Lynn Biyendolo, Emma Sears, Crystal Dunn, and Alyssa Thompson. So formationally, it was a little bit different, interesting. We saw Davidson go as the left back, McKeown and Sams in the center with Giselle Thompson still on the right, and then Sentnor in the 9, Shaw still underneath as the 10, Ryan on the left, Cooper on the right. Did you like these changes, Chris? What did you make of it, how it changed the game for the U.S.?
Well, for one thing, it added some teeth in the midfield. So if you're going to throw Cooper on there alone, I think that's a massive help because she's a player who thoroughly enjoys 1v1s. She likes carrying and breaking lines. She will get those progressive passes off. She will carry on her own. She does not care. And also, I feel like of the youth that we have called into this camp, she is the one most likely to knuckle up and continue to fight for balls, defensively, in attack, either way. Huge help. Saw that she managed to get her goal, kind of proof in the pudding there. Sentnor, again, another player who body movements on and off the ball, super helpful. Also, Yas Ryan, I feel like her being on there massive help too. Gave Ali Sentnor an outlet to plug and play into. Again, maybe a little bit too late in the game, but I feel like it changed the dynamic on field in that moment, and also kind of kept the US more on their front foot, with Australia in those moments finally starting to kind of try to up the tempo and pressing a little bit more.
See how these players changed the game. Did they change the game?
I think Sentnor definitely changed the game. She adds such a wrinkle of she's able to float around so much, and she's not afraid to open up and turn. That is just what the US was missing from the jump. We saw a couple moments of Shaw doing it later in the match when Sentnor came in, I think. But so what note I actually have here, I was just reading through, was that I really want to see the combination play between Shaw and Sentnor. Those are two players that I think would combine so well off of each other, playing off of each other. Little 1-2, Sentnor looking to run in behind, Shaw with her cheeky passes. We didn't get to see the bread and butter of most players in this game. I did like Cooper coming in for Alyssa Thompson. I think Thompson seemed a bit in her head. She has so much pace. She's so good at 1v1s. Her shot is great, and we didn't get to see too much of it in this match. She looked nervous and a bit hesitant, and kind of second guessing. And I think Cooper, hell, it's your second cap, your first camp. Let's go. You full send it, and she did. I mean, all you have to do to be a forward and be dangerous is just be around the 18, be in the frame of the goal and shoot your shot, and she did. She was in the right place at the right time. She did the work early. So I think she really proved her point, like, yeah, I'm here to work. I've got the rawness. Help me form this into what this team needs. So I like these subs. It gave energy. Was it much cleaner than what else we saw in the game? No. Still a big question.
We're not going for clean. We're going for scrappy and effective.
Yeah, but hell, if I'm wanting to bring somebody on the pitch that's scrappy and can be a game changer and effective, I'm looking at two players, which is Cooper and Sentnor.
Yes, to me, they changed the game in terms of energy. There was a big lift when we saw Sentnor and Cooper come on the pitch, and not just because 4 minutes later, the U.S. doubled their lead thanks to Michelle Cooper in just her second cap. Cooper got her first goal. It was a bit of a recycled ball coming from Giselle Thompson and Claire Hutton, actually, who threads the ball forward. That's what I mean. Like, growth came throughout this game because Claire Hutton was not playing those penetrating balls in the first 45 minutes. But I also think it has a little bit to do with who was in front of her wanting those balls. And Ali Sentnor really wanted that through ball, a little dink pass, threading it through, breaking a line from Hutton to Sentnor, and then Sentnor trying to dribble and create for herself. And then Cooper ends up scoring. They said it on the broadcast. It was Michelle Cooper's fourth touch of the game, and she puts it away. Absolutely awesome. A couple minutes later, we also got to see another sub, Sam Coffey, coming in for Claire Hutton in the 70th minute. And then in the 76th minute, Emily Fox coming on for Giselle Thompson. So full changes coming from Emma Hayes, going from what maybe you would call the B team getting the start to bringing in some of these more experienced players. I'm talking specifically about Coffey and Fox into the game. Darian, when you notice these changes, I mean, what'd you write down? Read us through some of your notes. Come on.
I was really happy for Coffey to come in. I was like, Coffey in for Hutton on her debut. Massive difference. Coffey in, seeing how she opens up, breaks the first line of press. That's my note I put in, because as soon as Coffey came into the game, she's bouncing on both of her feet. She's on her toes. She's constantly looking. Yes, Hutton was doing the same thing, but to be safe, I understand most of her passes went backwards. Coffey opened up and was switching the point of attack. It was the first time almost in the entire game we saw that happen from the middle line from the U.S. And it changed the look. It broke Australia's press. Australia had a hard time getting face-to-face with the attackers who got on the ball. It ended up being Fox and Cooper on the right. That's where I remember Coffey playing a couple of passes, but it just changed the complete look. Albert ended up getting up a little bit higher. And I think it was more so just a comfortability with Hutton and Albert sitting pretty parallel to each other. But I really, really love when Coffey came in. I think she just brought much more comfort in the U.S. because we knew what we were going to get. We knew exactly what we were going to get from her. And it was nice to see. I would want to see Hutton and Coffey play together and see how differently that changes Hutton's game.
with Hutton pressed a bit higher, almost as an 8.
Yeah, Hutton, the one that's an 8.
Yeah, she is an 8. Well, with all these changes in this, stabilization that Coffee brings, she did switch the ball. Australia scored 80th minute. It was Michelle Heyman down the right flank for Australia. And then Heyman was wide open in the box for this
center back.
Splits the center back. Very uncharacteristic of Sam's. Who do we blame? Is there anyone to blame on this goal?
Well, Lisa, I want to ask you. You're the defender. I have my thoughts on this, but I want to know what you think.
There's a lot that goes through it, right? You can start from where the play developed in the midfield. No one stepped to the ball, and it was a beautiful ball in over the top to Haley Rosso, who moved from the central location out to the wide right flank. So initially, there has to be pressure on the ball that's serviced, and then players going wide. And it came right after the changes to Thompson and Fox in the back of Fox coming in. And Fox was out of position. She was pulled a little bit more centrally due to what was happening in the midfield. So already players are out of position when this cross comes in, but it shouldn't matter. You have to pick up your runners. Everyone needs to be doing that. I think a little onus does fall on McGlynn, right? How much was she yelling at them and doing it? But you can't leave someone wide open as 2 center backs, or even if you're the right back and you're pulled out of position at the top of the penalty spot. Heyman was wide open, wide open.
Yeah,
you can't do
and
that.
It was a brilliant ball by Rosso. To me, it started, yes, the midfield breakdown, but Mickey Owen, it looked like she was looking at Davidson like, do I go? Do I stay? And it gave Rosso the time to have kind of a lengthy touch, pick out Heyman, no real pressure in her face. No one's throwing a leg up. Mickey Owen gets there late, and she served a perfect ball. It was on a dime. It was whipped in. It was head height. It was a great finish by Heyman. That is her bread and butter. Poor marking between Fox and Sam's in the 18. And McGlynn, I don't know, shoot your shot, come out, do something. That, Lisa, is what you were talking about earlier, as in you have to be the one to organize. You have to be the one to call the shots because everyone's waiting to hear your voice. And we heard so much about how Alyssa Nair was the one that was directing the entire time. And they were just missing that. That was a rare sighting for the U.S. to be that unorganized in the back and to get scored on. But we have to give preps to Australia. I mean, it was a really good finish. It was great service. They took advantage of the U.S. maybe being a little bit overconfident in the attack, which shouldn't have been. But yeah, that's a tough way to concede a goal.
I'm actually glad that the U.S. conceded a goal like that, because think of how much learning can be done for everyone defensively, right? Whether it's Mickey Owen, McGlynn, Sam's, Fox being pulled a little bit through there as well. Like, that is such a learning moment. And if that goal is saved or it goes over, it doesn't go in, you think about it, but those players are never going to let that happen again. They're never going to let
also,
that happen.
like Lisa, it's like Heyman, that sub on out for McNamara, like that was by design. Like Sermani was like, yeah, this is what we need. You knew she was going to be hunting. So it's one part, like, this player is going to do XYZ. Stop them from doing XYZ. Like that's the predictable stuff, like that's textbook.
It is. But it fell apart. And that's the learning. And that is the growth that Hayes wants. And that's why she wants 50 players available to be called into camp and to play in competitive international matches. And you're only going to get that if you try them. And we got that. 11 changes. And the U.S. still pull out with 3 wins. They get 2 goals on the night. They do concede 1 to Australia, but the U.S. get the 2-1 win over the Matildas in their second SheBelieves Cup match. And there's one more against the big dogs, Japan. We are concluding this match and taking a look ahead at Japan in the next time. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back with more Attacking Third. Welcome back to A3. US 2-1 win over Australia. We're going to do players of the match. No matter how clunky, how uncomfy, how much growth there was, someone still rose to the top to be the player of the match for the United States. Darian, I'm not starting with you. I'm going with Christine.
You know, I knew you'd flip this up on us. Darian, you ruined everything. I like swinging in the back. Okay?
I go first for everything.
Everything. I know. Lisa's like, Darian, tell me more hard eye emojis. It's fine. I'll go today. So very, very hard task today to pick out a player of the match. But for me, I'm going to go with Michelle Cooper. One, pulling up on your second game ever and scoring a goal, but also showing up in a match that had been largely disjointed, bringing the confidence and just like stick to itness to get in there and get the ball rolling once again, literally and metaphorically. And then sealing your goal is a dream. So I think we have a lot to see out of Michelle Cooper for country, as much as we've seen for club. Leadership qualities abound. Excited for what's to come for her. And that is why I'm choosing Cooper today, because it was hard.
Good shout. Good shout for Coops.
Are you going next, or
yeah,
is it me?
sure.
Yeah, Lisa.
Guys, this was a really hard one. I could give I honestly think that Allie Sentnor could be the player of the match just with how she changed the game when she came in. But I want to give a shout out to Giselle Thompson because my
Lisa,
bar was
it's
very
player
low.
of the match, not a shout out. Don't cop out now.
I'm giving it to her. I'm giving it
Okay.
to her because when you don't have anyone that's like outstanding for the 90 minutes or 60 minutes even, I'm going to give it to Giselle Thompson. I think the bar was very low for her to come in and to perform well. Not in a bad way, just she's a really young player. It was only her third cap. You have no expectations. And she grew with confidence on the ball throughout this game. She did a pretty good job getting forward by the end of the game, understanding where that space is, being brave in those moments when she was on the ball to cut inside. There is a lot of growth there for Giselle Thompson and where she can go defensively. She can get stuck in. The bar was low for me watching Giselle Thompson, and I was impressed with what she did. Pretty good positioning, and Emma Hayes needs depth at her outside backs. She needs many players that she can rotate in, whether she's playing in a 4-back with one going forward, or if we ever see her switch to a 3 center backs and then wing back players. You need depth. And this game said that Giselle Thompson is going to get called into camp again to grow as a depth position in the outside back for me.
I like that. I do like that. I think, again, it's the reaction of these younger players that it's not a pretty game. You have a lot to grow on, but let's see how you face up when there's a lot of adversity. And she had a great game in that front. My player of the match, I'm going to go with Lynn Biyendolo. I thought she was so effective. She looked dangerous. She was creating many opportunities. I mean, the Matildas were shaking in their boots anytime the ball was played backwards. She had one that she picked off in the second half. It could have been a goal. She missed the frame. I think she thought she didn't have enough time, but she actually could have taken a touch and cut inside and probably curled it in back post if she wanted to. But to me, I think when you look at the squad, and especially how much more depth there is in that 9 position, as a player, you would maybe want to change or adapt the way you play that has qualities of like Macario and how she plays, or Shaw if she's going to play in the 9, or Allie Sentnor even, because she's the one that's going to sit in the pocket a little bit more and look to turn and face up. And I think Lynn brings such a different level to the team that you can't leave her off of a roster. She has proven that over the years, and then to come in and score a goal just seals the deal for me. So I had to get a shout out for Lynn, because I think though how effective she is unmatched compared to any forward.
Hands down, scoring a goal 1 minute into a game is impressive no matter who does it or how you do it. It's impressive. Guys, I like these players of the match. Thanks for joining us on YouTube and giving us your players of the match. We get to see the U.S. one more time in the SheBelieves Cup. They're going up against Japan Wednesday. It's a late night match, 10:30 p.m. Eastern time kickoff, and Japan tops the SheBelieves Cup standings right now. So it's a big game for the U.S. Attacking third, we are previewing the entirety of of USA versus Japan tomorrow morning, live on YouTube, 11 a.m. Eastern. Listen as a pod wherever you can. Watch on Golazo Network as well. We're going to dive into all of it. Plus, we'll have Sandra back, and she's like 10 out of 10 for her predictions on lineups and changes and things. So you're going to want to hear what Sandra has to say. Thanks for hanging with us, guys. The U.S. get a 2-1 win over Australia in match day 2 of the SheBelieves Cup, and they're back in action on Wednesday. We'll see you all tomorrow morning. For Mark, Darian, and Christine, I'm Lisa. This was Attacking Third.